There and Back Again. A Goggins Tale, Part 18. The Siege of Gondor. The city of stone rose in concentric rings, each level taller than the last, a stairway carved into the mountain itself. Boromir led Pippin up the narrow steps of the citadel tier, the little hobbit gasping for breath with each turn. "This way, little one," said Boromir, his voice full of pride. "These halls have stood for over 1,000 years. Against plague, against fire, and soon, against the greatest darkness of our age." Pippin puffed, struggling to keep pace. "You know, in the Shire, we don't build this tall, so we don't need to climb any stairs." Boromir chuckled softly. "And yet, here you are, a halfling among warriors." They passed through the eastern watchtower. From there, the city opened before them, battlements lined with archers, courtyards filled with smiths hammering steel into swords, and messengers sprinting back and forth. Pippin stopped. "Boromir." "Yes." The hobbit looked up, eyes unusually doubtful. "Do we stand a chance, truly, against all this?" Boromir didn't answer at once. He turned toward the edge of the wall, looking out across the Pelennor fields, where shadows gathered like a brewing storm. His jaw tightened. Then he spoke. "So long as the valiant men of Gondor stand," he said, voice rising. He turned fully, eyes fierce now. "And with the Lord Goggins, yes, Pippin, we stand a chance against the armies of Mordor." A gust of wind stirred his cloak. Pippin whispered, "Well, that's reassuring. I think I just need a good breakfast now." Boromir smiled. "Then you shall have it." Before Pippin could continue, a trembling voice called from behind, "Boromir?" They both turned. A cloaked figure emerged from beneath the archway, the low sun casting his shadow long upon the stone. A bow lay slung over his shoulder, a sword hung at his hip. His face was thinner, Boromir remembered, lined by nights without sleep, but his eyes had not changed. "Faramir." He halted a few steps away, disbelief trembling on his lips, as if afraid the vision might vanish with a blink. "I thought you lost, brother," he said, voice hoarse with the ache of memory. Boromir stepped forward slowly. The space between them, once filled by time and grief, vanished in a flood of relief. "I was," Boromir answered, barely more than a breath. "But the Lord Goggins pulled me back." Faramir blinked, uncertain if he had misheard. "The Lord Goggins?" "Not again." Pippin exhaled quietly behind them, rolling his eyes. Faramir frowned, his voice soft but steady. "I've not heard this name before." "Who is he?" Boromir met his brother's gaze and laid a hand on his shoulder, firm and fraternal. "He is unlike any I've ever known. A man with no need for steed nor sword. He runs through shadow and storm without rest. He bends steel with his bare hands, and when danger dares raise its head, he does not flinch." Faramir stood still, his breath caught in his throat. Faramir's mouth parted slightly. "You speak as though this Lord Goggins was a mighty force of nature." "He is," Boromir said. "He is not of this world." Faramir looked away, swallowing hard. "When the horn broke in two, when they found it, I buried you in my heart, brother." Boromir stepped forward. "But I am here," he said, arms opening at last. "By will and by miracle." They embraced as brothers reunited. For a fleeting moment, time itself stilled, two sons of Gondor made whole again beneath the shadow of impending doom. But beyond the walls, the world did not wait. The bells of Minas Tirith rang, echoing across the white stone walls. A hush followed, settling over the people like a held breath. Boromir stood atop the ramparts beside Faramir, Gandalf, Saruman, and Pippin. Below them, the Pelennor fields had become a smoky sea of iron and fire. Siege towers creaked into formation. Catapults groaned as their arms were loaded with stone and death. Great beasts dragged war machines forward, their roars swallowed by the thrum of countless drums. The mustering of the enemy had begun, under cover of a thick oncoming cloud. Saruman's eyes narrowed beneath his hood. Sauron sends not merely an army, he sends terror. He pointed a bony finger at the Nazgul riding fell beasts in the distance. Gandalf nodded grimly. He means to break the spirit of the city before the first arrow is loosed. Boromir crossed his arms. Let him try. We hold the high ground. Pippin, small against the stone wall, looked down, his face pale but oddly focused. You might want to step back, he said. They turned. The hobbit was crouched, carefully unpacking a long, sleek bundle wrapped in canvas and leather. From within, he drew a rifle, black steel, worn from use, but perfectly maintained. The others stared. Boromir frowned. Is that not the mighty weapon of Lord Goggins? Pippin ran his hand along the barrel. He gave it to me, right before we left them. Said it was time I did something useful. Gandalf raised an eyebrow. There was a moment of silence. Pippin lay flat on the stone, sliding into position behind the battlements. He wedged a stock between two stones for stability, as he'd been taught. As he looked into the scope, he recalled a memory from back in Rivendell. A younger, greener Pippin knelt awkwardly in a forest clearing. Goggins loomed over him, shirtless as ever, rifle in hand. This ain't just a gun, little man, he growled. This is fucking deadly. Precision engineered. Balanced. Tuned like a fucking piano. He crouched beside the hobbit and pointed downrange at some crudely drawn targets. You see those motherfuckers barking orders? Those orcs with the shit breath and loud mouths. You shoot them first. The others panic. Shit breaks down. Chaos is our ally. Pippin swallowed. What about the recoil you talked about? Goggins stared, unblinking. Recoil? You're Rivendell trained, son. A fucking hobbit marine now. You've been taught how to deal with recoil. Snapping back to the present. Pippin exhaled. One eye closed. Finger steady. Target identified, he muttered. Ugly orc yelling at a troll. He squeezed. Crack. The shot split the air. Far below, an orc commander's head snapped back, body crumpling into the dust. Chaos bloomed. Trolls hesitated. Siege engineers scrambled. Pippin blinked. That actually worked. Boromir leaned over, smiling widely, again. He did. Crack. A torchbearer next to a siege tower slumped to the ground. The flame died with him. Crack. A drumline faltered. Crack. A fell beast screeched and veered off course, its rider howling in agony, one skeletal hand clutching a scorched shoulder. The fell creature spiraled into the gloom, wings flailing, before regaining altitude with a furious shriek. Pippin blinked again. Did I just hit a ringwraith? Gandalf leaned in, eyes wide beneath his brow. I believe you did. Saruman stared, stunned, as if watching the very laws of Middle-earth unravel before him. With weaponry like this, he said slowly, voice hoarse, it is no wonder the Battle of Helm's Deep went against me. If we take out their captains, the army will be in disarray, said Boromir. I agree, Pippin said, squinting down again. All right, who's next? He sighted another officer, this one attempting to organize retreating orcs into another siege team. Crack. The orc spun and fell, arm flailing into the face of a nearby troll, who took offense and promptly smashed the nearest siege tower out of misplaced rage. Boromir gave a low whistle. Master took. Would that I had a dozen half-men armed as such, the enemy would again fear the name Gondor. Crack. Below, panic rippled through the enemy's ranks. Drummers abandoned their beats. Commanders ducked. Siege units stalled. The machinery of Mordor had been thrown into disarray by a hobbit. Faramir crossed his arms, watching with growing awe. If this is the legacy of the Lord Goggins, then perhaps the West yet stands a chance. Gandalf said nothing, but even in his eyes a flicker of hope could be seen. Saruman, for the first time in days, cracked a thin smile. One brave soldier may create 100 cowards. I long to see the battalion of Lord Goggins and Rohan engage our enemies, said Boromir. It would be a sight worthy of song. Above them, the bells of Minas Tirith rang once more, this time not as warning, but in defiance. The siege had not ended, but it had been slowed. And every second gained was one step closer to the arrival of the riders from Rohan and Goggins' own soldiers. Pippin adjusted the rifle scope again, heart pounding. Sweat traced down his temple. The enemy was scrambling, disoriented, leaderless. He had never felt such terrifying purpose in his life. But success comes with a price. A screech shattered the air, tearing at their hearts. Every head on the wall turned skyward. The wind itself turned foul. A shadow blotted out the sun as a monstrous winged shape descended from the roiling sky. The Witch King of Angmar, clad in black iron, wreathed in malice, the Lord of the Nazgul soared toward the tower where Pippin lay. His fell beast shrieked again, its massive wings scattering loose tiles and dust. Its claws raked against the stone as it landed upon the rampart with thudding force. "Get back!" bellowed Boromir, pulling Pippin away just as a blast of black fire slammed into the parapet where he had knelt. Stone shattered. Flames clawed the air. Men were thrown screaming into the void. Through the smoke, the Witch King rose from his saddle, a towering silhouette of malice. "You dare," he hissed, voice cutting through the soul more than the ears. "You dare challenge my power." He raised a sword of wailing terror, invisible eyes fixed on Pippin. "I will break you, halfling, and feed your flesh to my beast." He moved forward. Then, a white staff struck the stone with a crack of thunder. Gandalf. Beside him, white robes flowing in the wind. Saruman. Together they stood, the two mightiest sages, united for the first time in ages past. "You shall not claim this city," Gandalf said, raising his staff high, its tip glowing with blinding light. Saruman's voice followed, cold and clear. "Begone, slave of evil. You face not a trembling steward, but wielders of the secret fire." The Witch King snarled. "Old fools." "The only fool is you," Saruman growled. "You have forgotten what we are. The old powers your master fears." The two staffs rose in unison. A blinding surge of light and force exploded across the tower. The Witch King's beast reared, screaming as white fire coursed through its flesh. With a deafening shriek, the creature was blasted from the ramparts, its wings crumpling like ash. The Witch King himself was hurled back, trailing shadow and flame, crashing down to the Pelennor fields below. He hit the ground hard, a crater blooming around him. For a moment, he lay still, then staggered to his feet and fled, his screeches more rage than pain. The shadows coiled around him like smoke. And he fled. From the tower, the defenders of Gondor erupted in a deafening cheer. The impossible had happened. The Nazgul had been repelled. Swords were lifted. Horns blew. Archers pounded fists on stone and shields. Faramir turned, voice ringing out over the roar of celebration. Already the halfling has felled many of their mightiest. He cried. Pippin, still breathless and wide-eyed, turned to Gandalf and Saruman. "Did I just help fight off a ringwraith?" "You did indeed, Peregrine," Gandalf said, placing a hand on his shoulder. He turned to Saruman in a more serious expression. "He will return. This time we will not catch him as unaware." Saruman grunted, adjusting his robes. "Let us hope we have not spent our power too soon." For the tide of war had shifted for the moment. Far from the siege of Minas Tirith, another kind of darkness stirred.
Thanks for joining us on this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey and are eager for more wild fan fiction, don't forget to hit that like button. share with your fellow fans, and subscribe for more episodes. And if you're as enchanted by the idea of Middle-earth meeting Hogwarts as we are, make sure to check out our series exploring this magical crossover. Your support brings these worlds to life. Until next time, keep the fantasy alive.